All right, what is up? We are coming to you live from Queen City Radio in OTR in downtown Cincinnati. For those of you in the house that don't know us, we are Pro Football Focus, the NFL's #1 provider of analytics. We work with 30 NFL teams at the moment, and we're going to be talking about the upcoming games this weekend. So I'm Mike Renner, this is Sam Monson, that is Steve Palazzolo, and we're going to kick it off. I know the Bengals and the Texans play tonight. We're going to get to that at the end, though. We're going to have a little Q&A at the end. Trey, who's over at the bar, has some sheets if you guys want to ask a question to us about anything NFL. The best question of the night wins a free subscription to PFF Edge, which has all our grades, a handful of stats, some fantasy tools for you guys. So make sure you go ahead and ask us some questions.
Before we dive in, have to tell you about our friends over at DraftKings.com. With Week 1 in the books, it's still not too late to get closer to the game you love with DraftKings 1-Week Fantasy Football. This Sunday, DraftKings is hosting a $100,000 Pick'em contest that is free to enter. Pick'em is the newest way to play 1-week fantasy football, and drafting your team is faster than ever. DraftKings has organized players into 8 tiers, so all you have to do is select one player from each tier. Choose between public contests with big cash prizes or private contests where you can compete against a group of friends. DraftKings also has beginner and casual contests where you can play against people of similar skill level. The best part is you get to draft a new team each week without any commitment. So get to DraftKings.com now and use the promo code PFF to play in DraftKings' free contest with $100,000 in prizes this Sunday. That's promo code PFF to compete for your share of $100,000 in total prizes. The contest is totally free to enter, so why not give it a shot?
Let's get right into it with the Cleveland Browns heading to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens came to town last week and put a hurt on the Cincinnati Bengals. Are they for real, or was that just a fluke? Andy Dalton playing like crap? What is it, Steve?
Well, I thought Baltimore's defense did a really nice job. You know, they looked really good. We expected Cincinnati's offensive line to struggle this year. I thought they took advantage of them with 5 sacks of Andy Dalton. I still think there were questions about the Baltimore offense. You know, when you shut out a team, a lot of times the defense gets all the focus. Mm-hmm. But the offense, still wasn't great. Joe Flacco still a subpar outing, despite being elite. So I think Baltimore is kind of like they look like your classic Ravens right now, a defense-centric team that's still finding their way offensively right now.
I will say I was super low on the Ravens heading into the year. I actually bet the Bengals a week ago. Terrible bet. Ended up looking like an idiot. But I think what I underestimated about the Ravens is the fact that they can stop the run with just their front four. Brandon Williams, Michael Pierce, Terrell Suggs, with just those 3, they can shut down the run. And what that does for your defense means you don't have to worry about the run with your linebackers, with your safeties. You can play coverage on the back end and not have to worry about that, which does so much. It's kind of like the Giants last year. They added Damon Harrison, and what that did for their coverage on the back end was you can't really account for it because they just didn't have to worry about the threat of the run anymore. And I think that's kind of what the Ravens are this year. And so this one, I could see the Ravens pitching back-to-back shutouts, if I'm being honest.
Shutouts? No.
Legitimately, from what I saw from the Cleveland offense last week, I think that it could be another. I don't think they gave up more than 10 points.
There's no way that Browns team is getting shut out. It actually didn't look bad against the Steelers. It didn't quite come through and make me look like a genius and come up with the upset, but they came close. And they had plays there to win that game. Like, DeShone Kizer had one of those typical DeShone Kizer games. It was up and down. The good stuff was impressive. He left some throws out there. He missed some routine throws they should have made. He also wasn't helped. Kenny Britt dropped the pass that should have been there. But they had plays to win that game against Pittsburgh, who nobody except me was picking to beat them.
Okay, you say except you. They still lost, Sam.
Yeah, but it was close.
You can't pat yourself on the back.
I am, yeah.
A pick that was still wrong at the end of the day.
The Browns are, before the season, though, we said the Browns are going to be that team that's difficult to play every single week.
I didn't. You said we. Maybe you said that.
Sam and I said that. Sam and I said that in the preview podcast. Right. They played tough defense. They only got 3 pressures on Ben Roethlisberger. That's a big concern. Yeah. With no Myles Garrett, 3 pressures on 37 dropbacks. That was the lowest percentage in the entire NFL. That's a concern, but they still played pretty good coverage on the back end. I'm expecting the same thing. The Browns are going to be a difficult out every week because I do think the defense will do a pretty good job.
I will say, though, this seems like one of those games where Deshaun Kaiser, we put 2 sacks on him last week in terms of ones that were his fault. He took 6, but they still had an above-average pass blocking grade as a team. This could be another game where I think Deshaun Kaiser takes a handful of sacks because Michael Pierce and Brandon Williams are so good at just bull rushing guards back into the quarterback. Deshaun Kaiser takes a long time to get rid of the ball, likes to step up into his throwing lanes. I think he could take a handful of sacks that cost.
They're good at bull rushing Bengals guards.
Okay, yeah, everyone's good at bull rushing Bengals guards, let's be honest. All right, I think I'm going with Baltimore. Sam?
Yeah, I think Baltimore is going to take it as well, but again, I think it's going to be close. It's going to be the tough out.
You're not going to pick Cleveland, and then when they lose by 3, pat yourself on the back?
No,
okay.
I gave them one shot, and now I'm done.
I'm picking Cleveland to lose 16 close games this year.
Okay.
So Baltimore wins.
All right, let's keep it moving. On to Buffalo, who heads to Carolina in a rematch of sorts. Sean McDermott heading back to where he coached a season ago. Carolina's favored by 7.5, though, in this one. Sam, who do you like?
The Carolina offense was interesting because we got to see that Christian McCaffrey playbook. We finally got to see the McCaffrey playbook, and the McCaffrey playbook doesn't look to be a particularly interesting or creative one. It was really just a series of plays getting him and Jonathan Stewart in the same backfield at the same time. There was really no creativity with McCaffrey as a receiver, lining up wide, doing all the stuff that we talked about him being able to do, the creative stuff. It was really just, how can you use these two guys in the backfield? It was like watching a 2007 team try and utilize, Weapon X as opposed to a team that was playing in 2017. And it was more than enough to beat the crap out of the San Francisco 49ers. But it's just disappointing looking at them going forward. But they are a better team. I mean, Buffalo struggled to beat the Jets. That was a close game there. Even though Tyrod Taylor played okay, that's not a good team, so it should be Carolina's pretty comfortably.
I will say, I was pimping out Mike Shula all offseason as a creative offensive coordinator, Carolina's offensive coordinator. He let me down. And I was, even through the preseason, I was like, just wait.
Keeping the powder dry.
Not quite the same, but yeah.
It's because they're going up against a San Francisco defense that's basic. They're cover 1, they're cover 3. They're playing that Seattle scheme now, and Carolina's not unlocking things. But you could also point to the fact that Christian McCaffrey, when he's lined up at fullback, they run that little screen pass to Jonathan Stewart. That was one of Cam Newton's touchdowns. So it's not like the creativity didn't work at all. And when you do have to account for the 2 running backs on the field, I think they're setting stuff up, because, defensive coordinators have to see the personnel group. They see McCaffrey. They see Stewart. At some point, they have to split McCaffrey wide in those sets.
And they did more of that earlier in the game than they did later on. They had him split out wide or in the slot, I think 6 times in the first quarter or something. And then once the game was in hand, they just dialed it back and, it was all vanilla stuff again. So there is the potential they'll do that more, but it was still disappointing.
How much of that do you think is in the NFL? You always hear, or you always see in college, someone like, Alabama goes to play an FCS school. They're not breaking out trick plays. They're not getting too creative. They're not getting too deep into the playbook. How much of that is in the NFL where Carolina's heading to San Fran? They know San Fran's not a threat to them realistically. They shouldn't be. How much does an offense coordinator, defense coordinator sort of not open up the whole playbook, not show too much if you know you're going up against a team that you should beat?
I don't think that happens in the NFL.
Okay,
I don't think it. Now, you might be halfway through the game and say
adjustments is where it happens.
Right. You might halfway through the game you're like, hey, we had 2 trick plays, in the game plan. We're not busting them out because we're up 20 points or whatever it is. There's no way they go in taking an NFL team lightly, saying, "Oh, we're saving it up for the Saints. We're saving it up for the Falcons in division games." There's no way.
All right, yeah,
I'm with you on the Panthers, Sam. If you're picking them,
yeah, I'm going to pick the Panthers as well. But I will say, Sean McDermott was in Carolina, Cam Newton's whole career. He knows his strengths and weaknesses better than anyone else. I think he's a talented defensive coordinator. I think it stays close.
There's something to that. I do think, because when you do know a team inside and out, there's something to it. And it's really tough to gauge Buffalo's defense going up against the Jets, probably potentially the worst offense in the entire NFL. But after week 1, 2 of the highest graded safeties in the NFL, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, 2 guys that they brought in
free agents.
As free agents. Tre'Davious White, rookie cornerback, one of our top graded rookies of the entire week. So a good start for Buffalo, even though it was against the Jets.
And their problem with knowing Cam Newton and knowing his weaknesses and knowing exactly what you want to make him do in the abstract is that it's the weakness of your defense as well. Cam Newton, the worst thing he does is pass the ball, with the exception of every now and again makes a fantastic throw. But your number 1 corner is a rookie, so you're going to dare him to put the ball in the air against a really patchy looking secondary.
he missed a number of throws,
Yeah.
Cam. A number of throws. That
That's
one
become his MO now.
was a busted coverage behind the defense, and he missed him by a mile. So he's got to hit more throws.
All right, man, we all like Carolina at the end of the day. On to Arizona, who travels to Indianapolis. A little bit of a long way for them to travel.
Long way.
But Indianapolis without Andrew Luck again. Arizona without David Johnson for 2 to 3 months. Arizona's still favored by 7 points, though, on the road. Who do you like,
as fantasy
Sam?
owners cry into their drinks
yeah.
across the country.
Awful. But who do you like, Sam?
I'm not going to go with the distance scouting this time because no Andrew Luck equals no win. The Colts cannot win with anybody that they want to deploy a quarterback, though at least they appear to be splitting the refs now between Scott Tolzien and Jacoby Brissett, who they just brought in. I mean, you've got to hope that becomes Brissett's job pretty quickly until Andrew Luck's back, because Tolzien, first throw of the game was an ugly pick six, and that's about as good as it got for him.
It got a little better, didn't it?
No,
it didn't really.
It was awful. They legitimately, so Indy versus the Jets, Indy without Andrew Luck versus the Jets. Are you even taking Indy in that situation?
I really think it might be the Jets.
Yeah.
The Jets have at least some talent on defense that you can kind of hang your hat on. The Colts are rough on both sides of the ball. Offensive line, still a major issue. Defense, they just don't have playmakers besides Malik Hooker, Sam.
Yeah.
Who I'm told you're supposed to talk about his tackling and how he misses tackles. But they can't rush the passer. Colts don't rush the passer well enough. They got all these kind of, the Jabal Sheards and John Simons of the world, these, mid-level free agents in the offseason to kind of piece things together, but they're still a long ways away on both sides.
So we all obviously like Arizona, but what's Arizona's sort of prognosis without David Johnson for the rest of the year? Are they done now that they lost their star running back?
So he would help the offensive line that really struggled. They struggled They struggled in the run game. They struggled in pass protection. David Johnson didn't have a great game either, but it doesn't matter. It's week one. He would have been fine. He is a dynamic talent, and he's your fantasy superstar. Some concerns about Carson Palmer in the way he played. It was just, a few bad decisions in there, a few spectacular throws that got negated by penalty or were dropped. But, Carson Palmer is going to be a big key here. If he doesn't have to rekindle and get that 2015 magic back, but man, he needs to handle age a little bit better. Right? Handle it a little bit better, because it could be a steep drop-off for Palmer.
It definitely hurts them. It's losing one of the most dynamic playmakers, one of the most versatile weapons, one of those weapon X's that they had last year. But I don't think this was a team that was going to contend anyway. I think the Seahawks are the class of that division. Just from looking at what is wrong with the Cardinals, they're not going to be able to keep pace with the best teams in the NFC. They're going to lose too many of these games. And David Johnson isn't the difference between that and that not being true.
I will say the Cardinals' offensive line last week was a disaster, but they deserved for it to be a disaster because they flipped their left and right tackle. They flipped DJ Humphries from right tackle to left, Jared Veldheer from left tackle to right for no reason whatsoever this offseason. There was zero reason to flip those tackles, and they both played terribly last week. That's what you get.
Why aren't your offensive line friends flipping out about that? They always tell us about how difficult it is to go from one side to the left.
It's like I'm a right-handed golfer. I'm just going to play left-handed this time.
Oh, no, it is not that extreme.
Okay,
please,
not
it is not that extreme.
But
that's my pet peeve. It is not that extreme.
It's not that extreme, but it is not an overnight switch that you can just make.
TJ Humphries gets hurt, plays only 8 snaps, and as his replacement, John Wetzel gives up a sack, a QB hit, and 11 hurries.
And again, even when the man goes down 8 snaps into the game, you don't put the guy that played left tackle there all last season back to his left tackle spot. You bring in John Wetzel to man the blind side.
They deserved it. I'll just say that they deserved it. I think they win this week. I'm actually betting on them to cover a 7-point spread, but they deserved it. All right, on to the Tennessee Titans, who head to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I got to sort of toot my own horn here for a second. And it's not even toot my horn. I just wanted to say this because this was insane to me. The fact that 100-plus national analysts in the Texans-Jags game last week, I was the only person who picked Jacksonville to win.
You were the only one?
I was the only person. It was a 5.5-point spread. That correlates to a 31.1% chance of winning. And I was the only person who picked the Jaguars to beat them. Like, that, to me, is crazy because there was no other game where it was like that. Even like the Pats-Chiefs wasn't that crazy. So
You did also say that Tennessee would pound the ball on the Raiders and walk away.
All right, well, let's not get to that. I'm just talking about the Jacksonville-Houston game, which I called correctly. And
well done.
But just the fact that one person picked the Jaguars, it was the whole Blake Bortles thing in the preseason, how bad he looked. And he looked all right week 1. Like, serviceable, especially against a good defense. That was better than everyone expected.
Most people were looking at the Houston defense and saying, all right, this is a top 5 potential defense. They have warts on offense, no question. But, maybe Tom Savage can keep them afloat.
Oh, I think that's what everyone underestimated, the fact that Tom Savage was not an NFL quarterback.
Forget Tom Savage. Okay. Forget Tom Savage. Yeah. It was not Tom Savage's fault.
No.
It was the rest of the offense. Just you talked about the Jets and the Colts being on the field at the same time. If the Houston offense is on the same field as those teams, I mean it's a horrible matchup. Houston's offense is a disaster. From the offensive line to playmakers beyond DeAndre Hopkins, it's a one-man show out there.
We'll get to that
one-man's wide receiver.
Let's get back to Tennessee at Jacksonville. Tennessee is favored by 2 points heading to Jacksonville. Sam, who do you think comes out with this one?
Well, this is big for Tennessee because they were at
they're
least
0-1.
Yeah, they're 0-1. They're going up against a Jacksonville team that suddenly looks a lot better than everybody gave them credit for heading into the season. That defense, I think a lot of people expected it to look decent, better this season, but I mean it completely throttled the life out of the Houston Texans offense, which admittedly isn't the greatest challenge in the world, but the manner in which they did it was impressive. It wasn't that they just suffocated them, they just beat them up a little bit. They absolutely destroyed that team. Tom Savage was pulled not because Deshaun Watson gave them a better chance to win that game, but I think because he gave them a better chance to actually come out of that alive. He's got a better shot of running for his life and escaping death than Tom Savage had. So suddenly that defense looks really, really good, but they're going to have a much bigger test this week against a Titans team that has, 1, Marcus Mariota, quarterback, 2, a much better offensive line. You've got a line that's at least going to test that pass rush.
What happened to Jack Conklin last week, Sam?
That wasn't good.
It wasn't. Khalil Mack happened.
Yeah,
a bunch of times. Khalil Mack happened.
Not just Khalil Mack. He got beat up by a few different people.
The most encouraging thing, though, for the Jaguars to me, Dante Fowler a week ago, sack, 4 more hurries. He looked good during the preseason, but I wasn't, going to get on board because, well, it was the preseason. But after week 1, I might be ready to say Dante Fowler is starting to live up to his top 5 draft stats.
But he doesn't even have to be great. When you have Calais Campbell on one side picking up 5 sacks, 1 QB hit, and 4 hurries. The 5 sacks per hour numbers because we're giving credit for half sacks and all that. You have Campbell doing that. You have Yannick Ngakoue as he's more of a pass rush specialist. He played 59 snaps, 38 of which he was rushing the passer. He has 2 QB sacks and 5 hurries. They have rushers all over the place. Fowler just has to be good. And so it was a great, encouraging, game for him. But I think the pressure's off because they've added so much talent to that defensive line.
There's the thing. On paper, the Jaguars heading into the season looked like they should have been, they looked like they should contend for the playoffs. But every year before this on paper, everyone, they had always underperformed what the paper said. If they actually live up to it this year, hey, they could contend in the AFC South.
Every single year they brought in all these talented players, and you look at them heading into the season on paper and think this team should actually be pretty good. And they spectacularly underperform every single year, and you lose faith in them. But yeah, this season, if they do actually live up to all this talent, you start running down this defense. Calais Campbell, Malik Jackson, Miles Jack, the cornerbacks they added, Sheldon Day, who we loved coming out, Dante Fowler. If all of those guys suddenly get it together, collectively, that's one of the best defenses, not just in that division, but in the league.
Yep, I definitely agree, and that's why I'm picking them for the upset. At home over the Titans. What do you got, Steve? Who are you picking at the end of the day?
So I think after week 1, for the most part, you need to go with whatever your preseason feeling was.
No, I just changed.
That's how
on a dime.
That's how I go. So I thought Tennessee was going to win the division. Tennessee is still the better team here. They should win this game. I was surprised. We always talked about their smash mouth offense, exotic smash mouth run game. They weren't exotic smash mouth. They'll get back to it this week.
It's Marco Murray at tight end. You can't hate on that.
I'm kind of with Steve.
I like Tennessee.
I think that after week 1, you try and figure out what the big aberrations are, where it was that you were wrong heading into the season. But I think that Tennessee are the better of these two sides. I'm not going overboard with Jacksonville yet. I'm still going to lean on the Titans.
All right, so Sam has Titans, Steve has Titans, I have Jacksonville. On to Philadelphia, who travels to Kansas City. Kansas City favored by 5.5 in this one. This, to me, is a classic Week 1 overreaction. because Kansas City, well, they looked amazing a week ago. I didn't think they were a playoff team heading in to the season. They lost Eric Berry for the season from week 1, and they're going up against the Eagles team that was also good in week 1, but I mean they didn't absolutely throttle the Redskins, but the Redskins aren't a bad team. That defensive line got after Kirk Cousins on 20 of his 47 dropbacks. He was pressured, and that's a legit Redskins offensive line. That's not pressuring. That's not coming up against the Houston Texans. That's not coming up against the Denver Broncos. That is a top 10 offensive line in the NFL there in Washington, and they got pressure at a ridiculous rate on Kirk Cousins. To me, I'm going to pick Philadelphia at the end of the day, even though they're, like I said, 5.5-point line. Am I crazy?
Because of Brandon Graham?
I mean, just because of everyone. Timmy Jernigan also looked really good in terms of, in Baltimore, they never let him get after the quarterback in terms of, letting a guy just fire off the line of scrimmage there. He played a lot of nose tackle and head up, 4-5 technique. They let him actually rush the passer there a little bit for the Eagles. So
I'm with you on half of it. I agree that I think it's crazy to get too carried away with the Chiefs. That week 1 was not, they're not going to be this all-conquering AFC team and suddenly march their way to the playoffs just because they throttled the Patriots. Mm-hmm. But I agree mostly that the Eagles' defensive front is fearsome. It can get pressure from all over the place. It's dominant, but they lost Ronald Darby, and now they're back to having no cornerbacks, and they're going up against Tyreek Hill. And we saw last week that
would have been nice to have.
Even though Alex Smith is pathologically conservative, will not put the ball in the air unless he sees a wide open receiver streaking down the field.
And he had multiple wide open receivers against New England.
And that is exactly what's going to happen if anybody on the Eagles tries to cover Tyreek Hill amongst others in that Kansas City offense.
To be fair, though, it's like no one liked Kansas City's receiving core heading into the year.
No.
Like it's just Tyreek Hill in terms of what you're worried about. I like, Malcolm Jenkins to come down and guard Travis Kelce. Outside of that,
fun matchup there.
Yeah, it's like I think that's a good matchup for the Eagles. Like that sets up well. On the outside, it's like literally just you worry about one long Tyreek Hill touchdown. After that, I don't see the consistency. I don't see the consistency in the run game that they had a season ago last week that kept them on schedule to be able to execute those deep passes.
But they have Hall of Famer Kareem Hunt running the ball. So you don't think he's going to keep that up?
Man.
Of course he was so good.
He looked like he was making all the right reads. He looks legit NFL running back right at the moment. Like how I thought about Jordan Howard when he first broke onto the scene.
Jordan Howard. Your other Hall of Fame. Look, Kareem Hunt's great, so I think he'll be able to keep it up. So they'll have the running game. I'm not expecting Alex Smith to put up those ridiculous numbers that he put up last week, but I think they'll move the ball okay offensively, and then defensively they always have a way of just making things difficult on opposing passing games. Justin Houston looked like Justin Houston, couple key sacks down the stretch when they got up. So I just think Kansas City is that tough, hard-nosed defense and enough offense to beat Philadelphia.
One thing that will be interesting to watch is the Patriots were able to get a series of ridiculously favorable matchups by moving their running backs around. Rex Burkhead was one-on-one with first Derek Johnson in the end zone. That they were 0-2 when they targeted him, but the fact that it was one-on-one with an inside linebacker and then an outside linebacker, a pass rusher essentially. Dee Ford was running deep down the sideline with Rex Burkhead, which is a ridiculous mismatch in the favor of the offense. If the Eagles were able to manipulate that with Darren Sproles and they get him one-on-one with Justin Houston or with Dee Ford, I mean, that's that's as big a mismatch as Tyreek Hill or any receiver going up against Jalen Mills on the other side.
First play of the game was a busted coverage, too. I think it was Dee Ford that should have been running down the sideline. Brady missed Dwayne Allen wide open. So there were some busts, I think, in Kansas City's deep, but for the most part, they did a nice job of making.
I mean, the Patriots scored like 27 points, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
27 points, including 2 4th-and-1 stops in Kansas City territory. So on one hand, you credit Kansas City for making those stops. On the other hand, it's like, all right, you're kind of playing with fire.
So it sounds like you're leaning towards Philadelphia then.
Don't try to talk me out of it. Don't try to talk me out of it. It's in Kansas City. That's a big factor.
It is. I'm still going to ride with Philly. Sam?
I went with Kansas City.
Nelson Aguilar.
All right, let's go on to the team that the Chiefs played last week. New England travels to New Orleans where they're 6.5-point favorites. The Patriots are, that is. Is there any reason to believe that New Orleans defense can figure anything out ever?
No. They're not going to figure them out. But I'm on board with this. Brady now needs Julian Edelman thing.
Ooh.
So I think that there's some kind of funk to this Patriots offense when they don't have Edelman there. Brady can't trust anybody to get rid of the ball instantly. Has to hold it longer. they become this more vertical style offense, which really doesn't suit them, never has, unless they've had Randy Moss running down the middle of the field. And they just don't look as effective. So that New Orleans defense looks stronger against the run. Those front 7 guys at least look like they can make some kind of impact there. I think they'll do a job against the Patriots run game. And then if that Patriots offense, like when you're going up against the Saints, you don't just need to score points, you need to actually keep pace with that offense. So suddenly that becomes a really interesting matchup. If they don't just need to, get something going, they need to actually keep pace with Drew Brees and an elite NFL offense.
It's going to be another Big 12 game.
Yeah.
All offense, another Big 12 game. Tom Brady, after week 1, 2.94 seconds in the pocket. A guy that usually averages about 2.3, 2.4. We're talking about half of a second difference. That's massive in the NFL, and that's the Julian Edelman factor. We saw that happen back in 2015. The offense becomes low percentage downfield throws. Brady also has the highest average depth of target in the entire NFL after week 1. The guy that gets painted as a dink and dunk guy, 14 yards per target, number 1 in the NFL. It's like they're running a completely different offense. So I want to see what New England does to kind of get that offense back on track. It should be a better, more favorable matchup going against New Orleans in the Dome, where it's usually a track meet.
Brady, though, had to be watching that Saints defense, Monday night, just laughing to himself about how easy it was going to be because of how many just terribly busted coverages the Saints had on the back end. I think the Vikings did a post. They ran scissor concept, a post in the corner. I think they did about 4 or 5 times. Worked every single time. They just could not execute any sort of switches on defense. The Saints, they're just incapable of running a normal base coverage that doesn't look absolutely nuts and screw their safeties or their corners and put them in a terrible situation.
I mean, it should look like a much different game for New England's offense, at least, because Kansas City played predominantly man coverage. They manned up, and it was like, all right, Eric Berry's going to take out Gronk, and they did a nice job of playing man. The Saints, like you said, they're playing a lot more zone, and they're playing it poorly, so there should be more open receivers. I think it'll look different, at least for New England's offense, and might be ugly again for the Saints D.
Yeah, I think we all like New England at the end of the day. Oh,
I'm going with the Saints.
Did you picking the upset? Any reasoning behind that? Okay.
The reason I gave. I think that they're going to do enough. That Patriots offense is not itself without Edelman in there. The Saints are going to do enough on defense to slow them down, and they'll win a shootout.
45-42.
Fair enough. All right, on to Minnesota, who travels to Pittsburgh. Steelers are favored by 6 in this one, even though Minnesota looked good in week 1. Obviously, they're coming on the road. Sam, who do you like in this one?
That's a lot to be favored.
Yes, that is.
I do like the Steelers. I'm not ready to believe in the Vikings yet. I think a lot of that was that New Orleans defense you talked about. A lot of wide open looks.
And it was still like Sam Bradford played lights out. Dalvin Cook had himself a game, and they scored 29 points.
Exactly.
It's like they didn't light the world on fire.
Yeah, halfway through the game, I'm sitting there like, shouldn't Minnesota have 45 points the way this is going? Bradford's not missing a throw. They're running the ball. How did they not have 45 points?
It's Minnesota's offense, though.
It is.
If they scored 45 points, it would be half of them on defense.
It was a loud 29.
Yeah.
Very loud 29.
Stephon Diggs looked fantastic, though. I mean, Adam Thielen got a lot of the yardage, but it was all those wide open crosses over the middle.
He was the one running the corner.
Stephon Diggs was the guy actually making the plays, contested catches, held on through being absolutely drilled by Kenny Vaccaro over the middle. I think him and Sam Bradford had themselves fantastic games. But the defense, again, I mean, it did some damage, but it doesn't look as formidable as it did a couple of years ago when they were really looking like becoming one of the best defenses in the NFL. It's a good defense. It's not a great one. And that Steelers offense, we've been expecting to be one of the best offenses in the league. They may be able to figure out a way of matching up with Antonio Brown, but then you've got Martavis Bryant, you've got Le'Veon Bell that didn't have a great week 1.
And now we're going to throw it to George Sharura. I'm pretty sure I butchered that again, George. Sorry. And Eric Eager for their lock of the week based on our analytics team. You guys check it out.
Well, thanks, guys. We are back. Eric and I are here representing the PFF Analytics team to give you guys some great picks for Week 2. We survived Week 1, although you'll notice I'm a little sick. That's not from Week 1. That's from Andy Dalton on Thursday Night Football. But we're going to move past that and on to bigger and better things here. Reminder, we're going to give you one pick here on the podcast. If you want more, head to profootballfocus.com. An article that we wrote is going to be up there with 5 picks. We went 3-1-1, which is not too shabby. And then if you want more, you want them all, head to PFF, ProFootballFocus.com, and get yourself the PFF Elite subscription. It's $200, but you get all our picks, you get all the great data that you could possibly want. So you need to make that happen ASAP. Before we get into our lock of the week this week, you'll notice I said 3-1-1. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Eric, there was one particular game, it's close to your heart, near and dear to you, and it was a little bit of a rough one.
Yeah, I mean, so, when we do these picks, often I end up rooting for the picks as opposed to the teams that I grew up liking. And so while all my fellow Vikings fans, friends were rejoicing over Sam Bradford having the night of his life, I was irritated that one Kaiser Forbath pushed an extra point wide right after one of their touchdowns and caused our last pick of the week, which was the Vikings Saints over 48 to push. But all things considered, pushing an over-under as your bad beat of the week isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's not terrible, but the wound is fresh, and time wounds all heals, as they say. So, we'll move past that one onto something that was a little better, which is what we told you all to put your hard-earned money on last week, which was Dallas making a mockery of the Giants and their attempt at playing football. We told you that the passing game was going to be pretty crucial, and that the Giants' passing game was not going to be up to the task. Eric, I would not say that they were up to the task. Eli did not impress. 3 points, not going to get it done. So 1-0, rolling into week 2, where we're going to go back to Sunday Night Football. Everyone wants to have something in on the big game of the week, and the Falcons welcoming in the Packers to their brand new stadium. They are 3-point favorites, and we have them covering that spread. So Eric, I have a special guest here. We are going to bring in, for some expert analysis, Sergio Dip. So, Sergio, welcome aboard.
Do we have Sergio?
Doesn't look like it. So, Eric, can you step in for Sergio? I'm not sure you'll be able to match the analysis, but tell us, what might cause this pick to somehow go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, just like me in relation to Sergio, I don't think we think the Packers are up to snuff here. But so there are some reasons if you're a Packers fan to be somewhat optimistic and against our pick here. Last season, the Falcons were clearly, they were one of the historic teams offensively, but they had some warts. At the guard position, Chris Chester, allowed 7 sacks and 13 hits and 28 hurries and retired in the offseason, and his replacement had a 32.3 grade in week 1 against Akeem Hicks, who was a pretty good defensive lineman in and of its own right, but probably not as good as what the Packers have in Mike Daniels, who had an absolutely fantastic game in week 1 against the Seahawks offensive line, front 5. Is it offensive?
Bad. I'd just go with bad.
Do we know that there are 5? We call it a front 5?
I did not count, but to be honest, I cannot confirm, neither confirm nor deny there.
Yeah, so Mike Daniels and the Packers defense had a pretty good game last week. We wonder if maybe the market is overcorrecting for the Packers, having a pretty good game week 1 defensively, the Falcons having somewhat of a sluggish game offensively against the Bears. But what do you think, George?
Well, let me shed some truth here. Like Vance Joseph on Monday night, Julio Jones had what you might say the time of his life against the Packers last year. 156.3 passer rating was what Matt Ryan racked up when he threw the ball in Julio's direction, and that's pretty good. I think he had 9 catches on 12 targets, like 180 yards. Utterly destroyed that secondary. And while Ladarius Gunter, the guy that, for the most part, Julio picked on, he got cut. He's no longer there. But, the guy that they are now playing quite a bit of snaps out at cornerback, Devon House, he barely managed 30 snaps after week 4 last year for the Jaguars, which is not particularly good. He had a 40.5 grade last year. So, it would seem that they'd be able to pick on that secondary once again. They put up 44 the last time they played. So, I would agree with you. I think the Packers defense was probably a little overrated based on how they played against the Seahawks O-line. And so, I think what our model is saying is that, look, the Falcons have the number 1 ranked team. They're number 1 in our PFF ELO ratings on the strength of their passing attack, and there's no reason to believe that the Packers can slow them down, at least based on recent history. So that's what we've got for you. Falcons over the Packers on Sunday night. What do you think? Was that pretty convincing?
Yeah, I think one of the things just to look at in terms of how the market is working out is, these two teams are basically the same personnel-wise as they were going into the NFC Championship game. Packers are a little healthier in the secondary, a little weaker on the offensive line. The Falcons basically bring everybody back. In fact, they are healthier in the defensive backfield. And last season, Atlanta was a 6-point favorite in the NFC Championship game and covered pretty easily. What's accounting for a 3-point drop this Sunday night? I think it's mostly overreaction to week 1. So I think we're on the right side here.
I'd hold your horses just a little bit. The Packers did lose Eddie Lacy, a pretty big loss, a pretty large loss. So there's a little bit of change, a little bit of turnover. We'll see how that affects.
They are traveling lighter.
Less jet fuel needed for this trip to Atlanta. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Yeah, that's not an arrogant name at all.
Really obnoxious.
Jeez. So that's our pick for this week. Of course, you can get more. Head to the website, subscribe, PFF Elite. It'll give you everything you need, I promise. That is a great investment. We'll be back next week. Back to you guys.
Don't forget about our friends over at Draft. That is draft.com, and Draft in your app store. Go download it and check it out right now if you have not. It is a great way to play fantasy football. They run mostly best ball leagues. There's all different types of ways to play, but the best ball leagues, my favorite way to draft, get your team, and then you just leave it there. You don't have to worry about the waiver wire. You don't have to worry about trades. They will take your best players every single week. It is so easy to play. I'm looking at it right now, and there are games to play right now. They start every couple minutes, and the best part about it is you can win real money. There are games that you could play for as little as $1, $3, $10. There's a $225 game here, and the prizes adjust accordingly. And today, if you sign up using the promo code PFF, you'll get your free $3 game because of the promo code. So get over there, get to drafting. It is so simple, especially when you use the fast draft. You can fly right through it. And this is the type of thing where you're going to have multiple teams for the season. Check in on them because you don't have to manage the team. You just kind of see how they're doing and collect your winnings at the end. So we're having a lot of fun with the guys over at Draft. Everybody at PFF has been playing, and we suggest you guys do too. Go to draft.com or Draft in your app store and use the promo code PFF for your free $3 game.
Is it officially time to start worrying about Ben Roethlisberger? So he last week against the Browns had one of the best situations you can ask for as a quarterback. Pressured 3 times on 37 dropbacks. He has Le'Veon Bell in the backfield. He has Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown. Did not play well against a Browns secondary that is one of the worst in the NFL.
But statistically, he had a 95 passer rating, and it all looks good. But one of those passes, was a deflection right? It was deflected by the defense, goes right to Antonio Brown. It's a free 50-yard completion. Throws another pass that should have been intercepted. Then, when they're about to seal the deal, goes into the red zone and throws a terrible interception to essentially bring Cleveland back into the game. I'm not ready to worry about him, but there's no way I come out of that game saying, hey, it's just Big Ben being Big Ben. Now, there were a couple plays. He made that great pass down the field to Antonio Brown to kind of seal the deal late in the fourth. He still has that in him. but the last 2 years he's been playing with fire. Number 5, highest percentage of turnover-worthy plays last year, got away with them. At some point, that could come back to bite.
Yeah, 2016 is lowest rated year since 2006 in a decade, and did not start off 2017 looking any better.
Anytime a guy starts talking about retirement, starts contemplating retirement, it's a concerning thing for his level of play. Unless you're Brett Favre and you can play with that every year and then just come back and be at your best anyway.
I still, though, at the end of the day, like Pittsburgh, even though I actually ended up betting money on Minnesota. So
you don't make any sense.
I want a close game.
You don't make any sense, Mike.
But if it's a Pittsburgh win under 6 points, I'm going to look like a genius.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
That's what I'm going for. Sam, who do you like in this one?
I'm in the same. I think Pittsburgh is going to end up being the better team, but I think it'll be a close game.
Steve?
I like Pittsburgh, too. Sam Bradford, probably the best game of his entire career.
Since the last time he opened the season at home.
I want to see him do it back-to-back times. Maybe against Pittsburgh defense he could do it, but I don't expect
that throw he had on the crossing route.
Ridiculous.
That put between the arm and like the helmet of a DB under pressure. That was one of the best throws I've ever seen because it wasn't open when he saw it. There wasn't a window.
There's no window whatsoever.
Yeah. And he threw it to a spot where you couldn't have put it any better.
You couldn't see the receiver from where he was throwing the ball. It had to actually pass by the defender. Like you just knew that he was on the other, like a blind crest, driving. You knew that it's over there somewhere, but you can't actually see it. You just had to accept that if you get this ball past the defensive back, the receiver will be beyond him and be able to catch it.
It was silly. On to the Bears, who traveled to Tampa Bay, where it's the season opener for the Bucs. They didn't play last week, so this is our first look at the Bucs. And I had high hopes going into the season. They're favored by 7 in this game. Steve, break it down for us. Who do you like?
I like the Bucs. I think the Bucs. Jameis's breakout season. Sam, you making fun of me for saying that, but I think the Bucs have enough, defensive playmakers, guys like Levante David, an emerging Quan Alexander, Gerald McCoy up front. I just love what the Bucs did with their offense this offseason. I think they're putting Jameis in position to succeed a lot more. They were a little bit more quick-hitting pass game this preseason. We'll see if they carry that out. But with Deshaun Jackson coming in and O.J. Howard at tight end, I just think they've added some playmakers that are really going to help Jameis in that offense.
That, I think, is the key, that they have added players in positions that should really attack the Chicago team. The Bears, I think, will be a much better team this year than they were last year. I picked them as my kind of surprise team. I don't think they're going to contend or anything, but they're going to be a much better side. Their offensive line will be good. The defense has improved, especially in the front 7. But they lost Jarrell Freeman, who was one of the better coverage linebackers in the league. Really good at squeezing those windows over the middle, making it tougher for a quarterback to complete intermediate passes. And just, even if he doesn't come up with interceptions and pass breakups, the splash plays, just down in, down out in coverage, he's making life really tough on those quarterbacks. And two, that secondary is the weak area. And suddenly you've got to deal with Mike Evans, you've got to deal with Deshaun Jackson, you've got to deal with weapons over the middle with a stand-in linebacker whose skill is not coverage like Jarrell Freeman's was. It's just, I think, a horrible matchup for the Chicago defense.
They needed to find another playmaker on defense up front. Hakeem Hicks had a really nice game, had 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. Leonard Floyd, their first rounder from 2 years ago, only 1 hurry on 24 rushes. They just need to find more playmakers. I think they have them on the team. I think a guy like Floyd will do a better job, but those guys weren't there consistently last week.
Yeah, I'm really just excited to see what the Bucs offense looks like because Jameis Winston and Deshaun Jackson to me looks like a perfect match. Deshaun Jackson on a deep post route, that's his bread and butter. That's also Jameis Winston post route. He'll throw that all day long. I just want to see what kind of impact that has because Jameis Winston only had Mike Evans last year for a good portion of the year until Cameron Brate sort of came on strong at the end. But he was throwing to Mike Evans no matter if it was double coverage, triple coverage. He didn't care. He was targeting him. Give him another weapon. Give him some more options. I think this Tampa Bay offense could be one of the more explosive in the NFL. And I just want to see what it looks like, to be honest.
That's going to be an interesting dynamic, whether he's going to use Deshaun Jackson enough on those kind of the plays where he's ad-libbing and it was just look at Mike Evans and put the ball there. Suddenly you've got Deshaun Jackson who, when things break down and it turns into a scramble drill, it's just going to go deep. And you're going to have this deep option that you didn't necessarily have before when you were just finding Mike Evans and heaving the ball in his direction. I mean, is Jameis going to look at Deshaun Jackson enough to take advantage of those wide open deep shots that are going to be there?
I always say about just Deshaun Jackson, though, if you look at the times when I've said, hey, the quarterback has played better than didn't play as well as his stats, Nick Foles and the Eagles in 2013, Kirk Cousins the last couple of years, I truly believe having Deshaun Jackson on the field, even when he's not targeted, opens things up, and it's going to be just huge for this Tampa Bay offense because Jameis hasn't thrown to many open receivers the last couple of years. So if Deshaun can open things up, we could see a huge year from your boy Jameis.
Sounds like we all like the Bucs.
Yep, we do.
Yep. All right.
No Mike Glennon discussion here. Decent.
We'll leave
too
that.
small for a helmet.
Decent.
Jury's still out. Jury's still out. Kevin White, it's over. It's over for you, man.
Oh, it's miserable.
All right, on to the Miami Dolphins, who also make their debut. They head across the country to Los Angeles, play the Chargers. Chargers are favored by 4.5. I cried after Monday night when they lost.
Your Super Bowl picks, Mike?
No, not my Super Bowl pick, but I'm still a fan of them.
What do you mean not your Super Bowl pick? How can they not be your Super Bowl pick?
Okay, I just said I'm high on them. I did not at any point say they're my Super Bowl pick. I like them to win the AFC West, but they're still playing the AFC.
I think we need to go back in the archives. There's no way you have not said that at some point in this offseason.
But not right now. I still like the Chargers in this one, 4.5 points. I like them to cover. What about you guys? Are you on board? Does anyone else, like even after the Broncos loss, anyone want to hop on board the Chargers train with me?
On your bandwagon.
Okay.
I'm with you for a week anyway. I'm not riding the Super Bowl with them, but I think they're going to be enough to beat Miami.
This was the game last year, though, that I've said I've never seen a quarterback feel the effects of pressure build up throughout a game. This was Miami was hitting him early in the game, early and off, hitting Phillip Rivers, and then Phillip Rivers, remember, threw 4 fourth quarter interceptions. And by the second quarter, he was just like, that's it. I'm just chucking it. I'm just getting rid of it.
He's like, I'm not going to die today.
Taylor. Our producer, Taylor, big Chargers fan here. But Phillip Rivers just chucking it. I don't want to get hit anymore. If Miami's defensive line brings it again like that, it's going to be another beatdown for Miami. But I'm picking the Chargers.
And Joe Barksdale had a bad first game.
He won against Von Miller.
Yeah, well, now he's going against Cameron Wake. It's not getting easier.
All I want to see in this one, I want to see Jay Cutler throw like 4 or 5 picks and then just quit post-game. Just like do a full Arian Foster from a season ago. I should never have come back. I'm sorry, guys. Head out the door. To me, that would be a perfect end to Jay Cutler's
over my head. I wasn't ready for this.
I wasn't ready for sure. I think it could happen.
We saw Chargers pass rush real quick. There was a point in the game.
Please talk about it.
Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa off the edge. Ingram had 2 sacks, 1 QB hit, 5 hurries. Bosa 2 sacks and 2 hurries, both graded extremely well as pass rushers. I truly believe the Chargers are up at Denver's level when it comes to rushing the passer.
And they're now playing around with both those guys on the same side. One of Melvin Ingram's sacks came from an inside move where Joey Bosa was double teamed. You know, they swung everything in Bosa's direction, took him out of the game. It didn't matter because now Melvin Ingram is one-on-one against the guard and just instant destruction.
Those guys are playmakers. They're going to be a factor. So we're talking another game with two bad offensive lines, 2 good defensive lines. It could be an ugly one for the offenses.
Still like the Chargers, though. Chargers all around. I like them covering, too. On to the Jets, who travel to Oakland, another cross-country game. Raiders are favored by 13 in this one. That seems a little low. It seems a lot low. This is the New York Jets we're talking about. I got to start getting the Jets earlier because it's like... it ruins my day when we have to talk about them.
So sad, Mike.
What do we think of? Is there any?
The Jets are going to be out west. Well, the Jets are going to be out west. Here's the good news: they're out west where they can get maybe grab a glimpse of a Josh Rosen or a Sam Darnold.
Oh yeah, scouting trip.
Yeah, it's a scouting trip. Oakland underrated win last week against Tennessee. I think it could be an AFC playoff rematch at some point, and they just quietly handled them. And I think defensively, Oakland made things tough. Carl Joseph made some nice plays. Up front, Eddie Vanderdoes as a rookie was disruptive. Khalil Mack was our highest graded edge rusher of the entire weekend. That defense had some playmakers.
They were like the Blake Bortles of defenses this preseason. Everyone watched them and was like, oh God. Everyone was off the Raiders for a while because of how bad their defense looked in preseason, came out and shut down a very talented Titans offense. So that was a statement for them.
I think you guys are both missing the key part though. In this week of preparation, Christian Hackenberg has been simulating Derek Carr, so they are set. They have seen everything that Derek Carr can possibly throw at them this weekend.
For completion.
Oh, man.
Except for a completion.
I am sorry, Jets fans.
Yeah, not much more to talk about. With that one, we
took the Raiders.
Like the Raiders.
We did, yeah. All of us.
On to Dallas, who travels to Denver. They're a 2.5-point favorite, though still Dallas is. Dallas made a little bit of a statement with their defense, or was it just the Giants' offense? I don't know. Is Dallas' defense still for real? They lost a lot of talent out of that secondary.
I'm claiming Giants' offense. It was the same Giants' offense we saw last year minus the Odell Beckham 60-yard slant that bailed out Eli Manning. That was atrocious. By halftime, Eli Manning had 4 completions behind the line of scrimmage and 3 beyond the line of scrimmage. It was absurd. Sam?
I mean, it's definitely...
Eli's done?
Yes. It's definitely... The majority of it is definitely the Giants' offense. But I think there's something to this Cowboys defense being consistently better than people are expecting it to be. And there's still, even with the guys they're missing, there's still talent there that is enough to create an overall picture of a pretty good defense. Sean Lee and who's our Notre Dame linebacker? Jalen Smith. Those two together, Smith is only just getting there, but you can see the talent. You can see the athleticism, the speed, the burst to the football. Those two guys together can be this dynamic linebacking core in the middle. And Anthony Brown is a really interesting-looking defensive back. He had a really good game week 1. He played pretty well last year for a guy that nobody was expecting anything from. A 6th-round pick in 2016. It's time we start looking at this guy as a pretty useful defender. And Orlando Skandrick is still a very good player despite advanced age. I think there is ability in that defense.
I will say this about Dallas's D. It is a lot like last year where they're not like lighting up the PFF stat sheet as far as rushing the passer goes. And most good defenses, that's how they work. They're a more conservative defense that's going to drop and make every throw difficult for the offense. They only blitzed Eli 6 times on 41 dropbacks, and those actually weren't successful dropbacks. So they are, and Zach Robinson's talked about this quite a bit, they'll play a lot of cover 1 where they flood the middle of the field and just put a bunch of defenders on defense and make it challenging for the offense. It's a pretty good strategy for them.
Last season, they had the second most 3-man rushes behind the Patriots. Almost 20% of snaps last year. They only rushed 3, dropped 8 into coverage. And with all, offenses wanting to go quicker, wanting to avoid pressure more, we're seeing that be a bigger strategy for a lot of defenses to try to avoid that quick game, avoid the wide receiver screens, because dropping it into coverage basically shuts all that down.
And that's where you get back into the 50-50 thing, because the strategy against Eli Manning at this point should just be to step back, put your hands up, and let him hang himself.
Oh, man, Sam, you're just getting more cruel every single week.
Yeah.
What about Trevor Siemian, though? Because he looked like a quarterback that the Broncos can win games with if that defense is at Broncos defense level.
So I went against my advice to you earlier where I said, go with your preseason feeling and thoughts, right? I was over there, Denver's regressing, and they're going to be bad this year and all this stuff, and I'm picking Denver to win this game. It's at Denver. I think that's a factor, and it's because of the way Trevor Siemian played that I'm picking Denver. His first pass was one of the worst passes of the entire weekend. He completely misread cover 2. He threw a curl right into the corner. Should have been a pick 6. Should have been 7 points on the board for the Chargers. But after that point, he settled down. I thought his touchdown in the red zone on that drive was outstanding. He had a free play. He had good patience, threw a nice touch pass in the back of the end zone. I thought Siemian not only commanded the game better than he did last year, but Mike McCoy calling the plays did a much better job of playing to his strengths, and I like that combination.
I do. Siemian, that factor to me is going to be huge for them this year, just what I saw from him taking a step forward from a season ago. If he can take any sort of step forward, they could compete in the AFC West, but the difference to me in this game is Denver's run defense. Last season, they were underratedly terrible in run defense. They had the lowest percentage of run plays stopped at or behind the line of scrimmage. They weren't good. Cowboys, they're going to have to prove that they can. They were obviously good against the Chargers, but a lot of teams are good against the Chargers in run defense. They're going to have to prove to me that they can stop it against an O-line like the Cowboys and a running back like Zeke Elliott.
That's exactly why, or this is the exact case of where you don't overreact, because they were able to absolutely destroy that Chargers offensive line, which is still not good. Domata Peko is starting at nose tackle for them. Bengals fans should know all about that. That is not a good thing. Adam Gotsis had a really good game. These are all guys that were able to beat up
last year.
Exactly. These are all guys that were able to beat up on a bad Chargers offensive line. They're suddenly going to run into that Dallas offensive line, which still has a crushing interior that will just walk Peko 5 yards off the ball every single play. They are not going to be able to stop the run against Dallas.
Point.
Zeke Elliott is going to run riot on this defense. I think they can still rush the passer, but there's no way they're going to be able to live with Dallas on the run in the run game.
Travis Frederick goes from facing big snacks
to facing
Peko.
Nose
tackle, the best nose tackle in the NFL, to Peko, who is
not.
The library. I've heard a bad nose tackle called like a library ladder. You just like slide them up and down. So
perfect.
that
except he's going backwards as well.
I am picking Dallas. I'm picking them to cover, too. They're 2.5-point favorites. I like that. Let's keep it moving to Washington, who travels to cross country again, Los Angeles, to face the Rams, where the Rams are 2.5-point favorites. And Jared Goff is the real deal, right? He's a franchise quarterback, right, Steve?
Yeah, he's what we thought he was coming out of Cal. It's one of those things where you have to appreciate the improvement. You have to acknowledge the improvement. He looked more comfortable, good deep ball, good pocket movement, but
still missed some throws.
But it was against the Colts. Too.
It was against the Colts.
It was against the Colts.
Basically a preseason game.
So, look, he's better. I'm not ready to put him in the Hall of Fame, but we talked about this all preseason about the different playmakers that they have, from Sammy Watkins to Cooper Kupp, Gerald Everett, the rookie tight end. I love all those combinations. So I love where Goff is going.
Here's a good question, though. Who would you rather have in this game? Just this game, Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff? Because Cousins last week looked like he thought he signed his contract already and was done.
Cousins was terrible.
And the thing about Cousins is every year of his career in Washington, he's had a good situation. He's had a lot of talent at receiver, talent on the offensive line.
Right.
He's always been in a good situation. This might be the first year where that situation's not impeccable, and it was one of the worst games of his career.
I've been waiting for the wheels to fall off for Cousins for a while because of that. I'm not ready to write him off, though, because I'm watching Sam go through his career right now and his grades. There are some ridiculously low grades at times throughout his career. And last year in particular, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL through 5 games. And then through week 6 and beyond, he was one of the better quarterbacks. So I'm not ready to write Kirk Cousins off. He's definitely a slow starter. But I am worried about him overall this year with different playmakers because he doesn't no Pierre Garçon and no Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson's that key. So,
but that was probably the worst game of his entire career, and it came against the Philadelphia Eagles defensive front that we talked about before. They've made better quarterbacks than him look a lot worse over the course of the last couple of seasons. He's not going to play that badly again. He's going to go up against the Rams, who themselves have a pretty good defense, but it's not that Philadelphia defensive front four, though Aaron Donald should be deployed for the first time this season.
I was going to say, it's not too far off, though,
no,
when
I don't
Aaron
think it
Donald is healthy.
But I just don't think you're going to see him have that level of struggles again this week. I think you're going to see a better Kirk Cousins, at which point immediately this is a closer game than it would be if you're saying your quarterback is going to be throwing the game away actively over the course of the afternoon.
Distance scouting, though, Sam.
It is a long way to go.
No, going west is okay.
It's
going
one,
east. Going east with the distance.
But Sam's all about how long the flight is. Sam's Sam thinks your knees get a little sore on that cross-country
Are you still
flight.
jet lagged from Ireland?
Absolutely.
It's been over a month here.
You need a while, though, to adjust from those really short confines of an airplane seat.
It's starting to get packed here, guys.
So who do we like?
Nice.
It sounds like Sam likes the Redskins in this one.
No, it's the distance. It's too far.
Okay.
I'm going with the
I like the
Rams.
Rams. I like the Rams, but I think this is sneakily one of the better games of the week.
Yeah.
I like the Rams as well. I'm actually very excited to watch that game. That should be a fun one. On to the 49ers, who travel to the Seahawks. Divisional game there. Seahawks are favored by 2 touchdowns, 14 points. But Shanny last year did some work on that Seattle defense. Schematically, not too much through that offensive talent. He does some work in terms of he can exploit that cover 3. He knows how to work it. Is Brian Hoyer gonna have it go off against the Seattle defense?
No.
Okay.
Even like last year, the idea was that it was inside information. It was, the defensive side knew how to exploit that defense. I don't know how much it was Kyle Shanahan's operation as opposed to this is where the weak points
exploit
are.
With Julio Jones. I'll say
also
that.
True, yeah.
I was gonna say, if you're Kyle Shanahan this year, do you not break anything out? Schematically, do you just anything you think of, do you just sit on it? And
for next year, mark
in the
2018
I know
folder.
that I have these sweet plays that will beat your coverage, but what's that going to do for me? I'm gonna go 6-10,
especially in division games. He treats
go 6-10 instead of 3-13.
He plays a 16-game preseason schedule.
Yeah, you just mark this in the
2 run plays, 5 pass concepts.
You talked about how they have those lifetime deals. Is he just scheming behind the scenes, just I'm gonna kill everybody?
Everything this year goes into the 2018 folder, and as soon as we roll around to February is where Kyle Shanahan gets to work.
If you're gonna tank. Do it the right way.
I think they tank.
Seattle's the team.
Seattle's obviously the pick. 14 points. It's a lot. It's a big spread. Seattle's offense, are we worried? Are we official? Is it just going to be the same as last year, where
same level of
they
worry
face
as
any
last
defensive
year.
line and it's like they score 10 to 15 points?
Yeah, you're going to see this series of games where Russell Wilson, there's a level, a percentage point of pressure where beyond that Russell Wilson just can't get it done because it's too much for anybody to deal with. And it's like, if you're above 45% in a game, if you're getting pressured more than 45% of your dropbacks, there's just nothing you can do about it. It's too much to deal with. And that's kind of what Russell Wilson did last year. You saw it when they faced the Cardinals was when it kept happening. I think just as soon as you face a defense that's able to get that level of pressure, it's game over for the Seattle offense, and they're going to have to rely on the D doing the job.
We all should have been worried when the guy who couldn't beat out George Fant was starting at left tackle, because George Fant, lowest grade left tackle in the league last year. This guy,
Reese
can't beat him
Odiombo
out.
from Boise State.
Not good.
First snap gets absolutely destroyed, and it was just not a good
You
game.
rarely see bull rushes where guys end up on their back
He
without.
tripped though, Mike. He got tripped.
No, you
got
watch that
tripped.
again, Steve. He didn't get tripped.
He got tripped.
He got pancaked.
That's what everybody's telling me he got tripped.
It was not good. All right.
By the way, defensively, Seattle, on one hand, I thought they did a really nice job keeping Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay in check. On the other hand, Green Bay's offensive line really did get the better of Seattle's defensive front. There were 5 sacks for Aaron Rodgers, but that was Aaron Rodgers holding the ball way too long many times. So I do think Seattle's defense is going to be great, but it wasn't that dominant defensive front you used to see.
A little bit of an underrated thing last year was Michael Bennett was not getting pressure at near the rate. It was one of the lowest rates of his career since we saw him early on in Tampa Bay. He was not the same level of impact player as a pass rusher, and didn't have a great game against Green Bay either. Is that once you don't have that dominant guy, all of a sudden just the teeth kind of sort of comes out of that defensive front. Obviously, Sheldon Richardson's going to add a little more back to it. I wish they would have had Malik McDowell as well, but
I think Bennett will be fine because there might be a little bit of a drop-off, to your point. Sheldon Richardson, though, was their top pass rusher last week. 1 hit, 5 QB hurries. He was difficult to block in must-pass situations, so I think he'll make up for it enough that it's still a formidable defensive front.
All right, on to the team the Seahawks played last week, the Green Bay Packers, who traveled to Atlanta in a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. This is Sunday Night Football. Atlanta's favored by 3 at home. It was not nearly that close when the last time these two teams played. Sam,
I love that they cut Ladarius Gunter just as a precautionary measure going into this game.
Like, if he has to get on the field, we're going to lose. So just make sure he can't get on the field.
It went so badly having him try and cover Julio Jones in the NFC Championship game that they just went, you know what? It's not even worth the risk. Let's sit him down. We'll get rid of him, and then if we need to, we can get him back off the street later in the season. But let's not even play with that.
The Green Bay's defense, though. It was against Seahawks offensive line, but even on the back end, they looked improved from a season ago. It's hard to get worse, so obviously anywhere they'd go is up. But Devon House had the one busted coverage that Russell Wilson missed, but guys like Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins, who they had high hopes for, were high draft picks, started looking a little better. Is there a chance Green Bay's defense is, average? Average could get them to the Super Bowl with this offense.
Yeah, because on paper, they never should have been as bad as they were last year.
Yeah.
We always kept saying, okay, Demarius Randall, when he has this pretty good rookie season, and Quentin Rollins has this pretty good rookie season, you would think, like in Madden, they just get better, right? They add pluses. Add pluses.
If a guy gets worse in Madden, you're like, great.
Right. You don't get worse till you're 40 in Madden. Yeah. Come on. So I think they should regress back or, improve back to what they were. Mike Daniels had his usual dominant effort, and Nick Perry was dominant. But my concern would be if those guys don't dominate, or if they don't go up against the Seattle offensive line, then what happens with Green Bay's back?
But that I think is the concern, is that those two guys were fantastic. You expect those two guys to be fantastic against Seattle, and against most teams they're going to be successful. But nobody else managed to do anything against that Seattle offensive line. That is terrible. You should have got 4 pressures playing against that Seattle offensive line.
I only had 3.
And nobody else got anything. Like, Clay Matthews had 2 hurries, and that was the most pressure anybody other than Mike Daniels and Nick Perry managed. Like, somebody else needs to be able to do something against those offensive lines when you're going up against a terrible one.
They do need a third option. I still think, though, Atlanta's offense just is going to regress from the season ago. You lose Kyle Shanahan. Half of what made him so special was his play calling ability, calling the right play at the right time. And we saw week 1, Matt Ryan did not grade out too well.
If you take away
had only 2 games last year, grade out worse.
If you take away the 88-yard touchdown, which was a complete busted coverage, nice job by Matt Ryan finding Austin Hooper. and then another 40-yard gain from Austin Hooper, and another terrible coverage.
And the stiff arm from hell.
I mean, it was a pretty average game for Matt Ryan. And to be honest, if you watched him in the preseason, he didn't look sharp there either. I'm not expecting MVP Matt Ryan. He's still one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but that is a part of that entire regression. That's why I'm going Green Bay here.
I'm going Green Bay as well, Sam.
Let me have a look. Where am I going? I'm going with Atlanta.
Sam.
Let's see if we remember what he did.
Let me have a look at my picks.
What did I take?
It's pickwatch.com up right now to
Pick
find
watch.
out what he actually picked.
Sometimes you make your
Still
picks
went
3 days ago and you forget what they were, Mike.
Absolutely. Not only do you forget what they were, but you forget the reasoning for even doing it.
All right, let's go on to Monday Night Football, where the Lions travel to the New York Giants. Giants are favored by 3.5 in this one, despite these teams looking like the complete opposite of each other. Like when the Lions looked very good in their win again over the Cardinals, while the Giants looked like they shouldn't be on an NFL field offensively. Odell Beckham likely not to play. I think that's the prognosis at the moment. If he doesn't go, do the Giants even have do they have a chance in this one to move the ball offensively? Even if the Lions' defense isn't anything special?
So the funny thing is, as much as we talk about Eli being done, even without Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard's still a capable receiver. Brandon Marshall's a capable receiver. And Evan Ingram, their rookie tight end, is a guy that if they feature him, can get 5-6 catches. And be a guy. Right, if they feature him. So it's not like it's completely incompetent playmaker-wise behind Odell Beckham. I think they're going to have to open it up a little bit more and, let Eli try to throw the ball down the field. Detroit played way above their heads in week 1 defensively, right?
Are we going to do this again? Are we going to just say Detroit every game that they
Detroit's
win?
going to be 12-0, and they're so overrated. It's just luck.
This is the classic.
To be fair, there's no Detroit fans listening right now because we've alienated all of them.
They don't listen to the PFF podcast.
I tried to claw it back. Hey, I picked them last week. You ridiculed me. You said there's no way they will put points up on that Arizona defense, and they put points up on that Arizona defense.
Well,
this, I think, is the classic, though, week 1 overreaction game. Okay. I think you don't go too far on either team. The Giants were terrible against Dallas. They got nothing done on offense. It was horrible. And Detroit looked fantastic against the Cardinals. They put up points. Kenny Golladay came out of nowhere, had those spectacular catches. This team looked legit. I think both of those are probably wrong. I think the Giants are going to be better than they looked week 1. I think the Lions are going to be worse than they looked week 1. And it's going to meet somewhere in the middle, at which point you go back to what you thought before the season, and the Giants should be contending and the Lions won't be.
I will say, for as much as the Giants get shit on for the week 1 performance, their defense looked good. They pretty much shut down a Cowboys offense to some degree, and I think Cowboys offense one of the better ones in the NFL, definitely a better offense than I think anyone would say the Detroit Lions are. So tight game, low scoring. I think I still will pick the Giants at home.
I'm going with Detroit.
No.
Again, I changed. I got influenced a little bit. I like the way Stafford played. I thought I liked his comfort level in the pocket after his pick 6. Bounces back, throws the 4 touchdowns. He did a really nice job spreading the ball around. And it is funny looking at Detroit's top defensive players, guys like Anthony Zettel on the defensive line, and Miles Killebrew pick 6. So that some underrated guys making plays. But I think Detroit at home and with Stafford, the way he's playing, I think it's going to be tough to stop. 9-6 Detroit.
The Lions still gave up 23 points against the Cardinals last week. There's no way that offense is going to be as successful against the Giants. Look at the offensive line. The left side is a train wreck.
You're using week 1 completely as the gauge here.
No.
Well,
Go beyond week 1 and look at the rest of that offensive line. Greg Robinson is their left tackle. Pick any week. Pick a week.
I said at Detroit. I meant it's at New York. But I still pick Detroit.
Pick any week from Greg Robinson's career, and I'm telling you that's a problem.
Okay, so he's not great.
All right, Sam's going to the Giants?
Yep.
I'm going to the Giants. Steve's going to Detroit.
Can I change my pick?
Nope.
You changed it already. All right, on to the game we've all been waiting for, the game that's happening later tonight. If you're listening from home, you can keep
done.
listening. But
you can ridicule us based on what we say.
You can see how dumb we look.
Analyze how good our analysis was.
Yeah, Houston's in town facing off against the Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 6 points, even though they didn't score any points last week. But even though they didn't score any points, their offense still look better than the Houston Texans, if that's possible. Do we like Cincinnati to actually win this game, even though they're favored by so much, Sam?
I don't like them to be favored by 6 points, but yeah, another week 1 overreaction thing. The Bengals should be able to score points at some point. That Houston Texans offense, though, was really, really worrying. And they're going with Deshaun Watson this week. They're starting the rookie. They made the knee-jerk decision that I think is
Oh, you had your take in the early week podcast.
I think it's hasty. You know, the pulling Tom Savage was because he was going to get murdered over the course of that game. Fine. Okay, that's fair enough. But let's work on the offensive line during the week, and let's put the guy that you said is the starter, the guy that you said, look, Deshaun Watson is not ready yet. He is not up to Tom Savage's level. Savage hadn't done anything to lose the job, still hasn't done anything to lose the job. You know, didn't play disastrously, just didn't have a chance in that first game. So it seems to me to be really hasty to pull him, put in the rookie who you know is going to do some bad things. I mean, you saw that there was a horrible interception. There was some terrible stuff in there. So Watson, I think, is going to play badly. He's going to throw the ball to Cincinnati defenders, and then it's just a case of whether the Bengals offense can score. And it should be able to. You know, it should have been able to against Baltimore. It should be able to against Houston, put something on the board, at which point that should get them there.
Yeah, I was going to say, with everything you laid out, I think this is going to be a blowout at the end of the day. I don't think the Texans, just that offense, I don't care what defense they're going up against. With that offensive line, with Deshaun Watson, a rookie at quarterback who looks lost behind it, even when he did have time, I just don't think they're going to score a lot of points, whereas the Bengals could score. They'll score at least a couple touchdowns.
6-0.
At least, right?
6-0?
Do they need to get into double digits for it to be a blowout?
Could get a defensive score.
If they win 9-0, is it a blowout?
Yeah, I mean, like they could win 9-0. It could not look close because the Texans go for under 100 yards. I tweeted out earlier this week that I couldn't make up my mind about which offensive line was the worst in the NFL last week. And I thought about it some more, and it was 100% the Texans offense.
Yeah.
It was the Texans offensive line. Both Tom Savage and Deshaun Watson were under pressure over 50% of the time.
Number one in the NFL.
Yeah, number one and number two in the NFL. I likened it to you're watching like a football movie where this high school team travels to their rival, and their rival like pulls out some schematic aspect that they weren't expecting whatsoever, and they have to figure it out mid-game. That was the Texans with stunts with the Jaguars. They're like, what the heck was that? Like,
witchcraft.
They ran a stunt, and they're like, is that even legal? Because they didn't know what they were doing every time the Jaguars ran a stunt.
Sam and I fixed Houston's offensive line back on the Monday Week 1 review podcast, though.
You had a sixth offensive lineman? That was my take.
That's a good one.
Start 8. No, start. We were saying, well, Dwayne Brown will come back, so Kendall Lamb doesn't have to play at left tackle.
Big
and
help.
maybe one of their better offensive linemen, Greg Max, didn't play and wasn't didn't
Came
play.
on. Didn't start.
Right, didn't start. And Nick Martin is a reasonable center. He's a good center. He's their best player. But Kendall Lamb at left tackle, Breno Giacomini at right tackle, both were disastrous. This Texans offense really does not have personnel. DeAndre Hopkins is still good, but they don't have anything.
We only fixed the left side.
Do they even have an active tight end?
Yeah, we only fixed the left side.
No, that's true. There's a whole right side. I'm fascinated by this whole decision to go to Deshaun Watson, the guy that, like Sam says, is more capable of running for his life, but he's your first-round pick that you invested in. You don't put those guys out there to run for their life, but we'll see what he can do. I think it's going to be a struggle.
So they have one active tight end that I think they just called up to go into this game with. But is that not setting up J.J. Watt touchdowns as a tight end?
Just let him play full-time.
You got to get into the red zone.
100 snaps.
Well, that's going to be
not with J.J. 80 yards. He can go in.
Yeah, let him in. Just fade down the field.
Why not? What could go wrong? All right, so I think we're all Cincinnati for this
I'll
one.
say this, though. Houston still has a very good defense.
They do.
They still have a lot of talent there, and we talked about all offseason this Bengals offensive line.
Oh, they're not much better. Yeah,
this is going to be a struggle. Both offensive lines on both sides.
I could easily see a 9-0 type of game. I mean,
but all the Bengals fans here want us to pick the Bengals, right?
Yeah.
There's thousands of fans here.
We're all picking the Bengals. I'm picking the Bengals to cover. I already put my money down. That's all the games this week. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to go to ProFootballFocus.com. Check that out, ProFootballFocus.com/product/elite and edge, and check out all our offerings. We're going to get into some Q&A here. We had you guys write down some questions. We're going to pick out the best question at the end of this. You guys are going to get a free PFF Edge subscription. So right off the bat here, first one. Why won't the Bengals fire their current coach and find a better replacement? Steve, you want to handle this one?
Take it away, Steve.
How do I dance around this issue?
I don't think Marvin's here, so I think
Marvin's not here?
No.
Okay. I thought he was attending the podcast live.
Marvin gets the podcast in his car on the drive.
There's something I'll say this. I appreciate the fact that there's some sort of consistency factor. I think a lot of times in the NFL and in college, they're way too quick to get rid of the coach. So I at least appreciate the attempt at consistency because there is something to that. I can't speak to why they haven't. I do think that they believe in consistency here in Cincinnati. But I do think Marvin's ups and downs have flowed with personnel. And when he's had personnel, he's had some success. When he hasn't had personnel, the team hasn't looked great. I think the personnel's down just a little bit this year compared to where it was.
So his side of the ball, defense, that's how he was a defense coordinator prior to this as being a head coach. I think his side of the ball has always been at least solid. So he's always accounted for that, similar to someone like Lovie Smith. But you still need offense to win in the NFL. You still need, at some point, a high-level offense, and he's just never been able to find that.
There's also something to never being terrible. Like it takes. There's a greater threshold. Yeah, there's a greater threshold you need to clear to make a team, completely give up on you and get rid of you. If you never hit that season where you just go 2-14 and go, look, there's nothing we can do. We're getting rid of you now.
I will say I was surprised that they brought him back this year just because of sort of the talent they had coming back. It didn't seem like this was going to be a Super Bowl campaign. Even if they made the playoffs, it seemed like it was going to be another one and done. Even if they do make the playoffs,
it might be a good time to rebuild, get the fresh.
Which is, he gets another one and done. All of a sudden, he's
Peyton Manning.
No, I was going to say he's the Chargers coach that they fired after
Marty Schottenheimer.
He's another Marty Schottenheimer. So. All right, next question. How did Jared Goff do in his first notable NFL game? We already touched on that a little bit. We were all fans of his performance.
Very good. A lot of the traits that he showed at Cal, pocket presence, downfield accuracy, able to handle pressure. Very nice start for Goff this season.
Have you officially got the Goff jersey out of the closet now? Is it back on display?
I dusted it off. It's probably one performance away from wearing it into the office. Nice. Our top-graded quarterback coming out of college in 2015.
All right, what is Joe Mixon's ceiling in the NFL?
Mike, you want to answer that one?
Oh, I do want to answer that. I was a little disappointed. He got Dancy behind a bad offensive line, which is always worrisome. You want a guy who is Dancy in space, can break it. He could that was what I loved him the most. He's a 230-pound back who can dance in space, shake you, and run you over. But he turned into just the guy that wants to shake you and not the guy that wants to run you over last week. Only 8 carries, whatever.
Otherwise known as Trent Richardson.
Trent Richardson syndrome.
Oh, man.
So a little worried about that. That scared me a little bit. But like I said, only 8 carries. I think I've seen some guys get rid of that over time. If he can, he has all the talent in the world.
8 carries, 9 yards, 8 of which came after contact.
I do worry about...
14 of which came after contact. All of his yards plus 5 came after contact.
But his ability to affect the pass game, and if he does, run the way you're saying he needs to run with power and with that elusiveness, could be as good as any back in this class, which is already, we know, loaded.
I do worry about talking about ceiling because that's dangerously close.
It's upside right there. Upside. Drink.
All right. What are you watching for tonight with Deshaun Watson? Steve, QB guru.
So pick sixes.
The knock on Watson, or at least our feeling, our knock on Watson coming out was, his ability to go through reads, go through progressions. Bill O'Brien runs a pure progression system. Get from 1 to 2 to 3. As Zach Robinson likes to say, read it out from right to left, left to right. I want to see him do that at some point. It's not something that he does very well. And then I want to see the Texans use him. He's really good if you give him the right pre-snap look, and he'll just get the ball where it needs to go. So they need a lot of plays where they get the right pre-snap look, roll him out a little bit, take advantage of that athleticism. So I think that I'm looking for a very managed game plan. But when he does have to drop back on 3rd and long, can he go through his reads instead of dropping his eyes, which he tended to do?
Yeah, I do think the 3rd downs are what I'm going to be looking for the most. Just is he, when it's not the quick game, when he has to take a second 15-yard intermediate throw, can he do that? Because he just hasn't done that.
I'm excited to see his tackling. Last week after his pick, he pulled a beautiful tackle on Miles Jack, who was a college running back. Mm-hmm. We could see some spectacular tackles.
How sad were you that your running back crush,
his blocking
got tackled by a
I was so mad. Miles Jack in the open field against Deshaun Watson. Come on, man, make a move.
You're underselling Deshaun Watson's tackling ability. I'm telling you.
What? Or maybe move him to safety.
He might have 4 or 5.
What are the keys to win for the Bengals tonight?
I think survive on the offensive line.
Survival on the offensive line.
Creep back toward average. Survive up front and give Dalton enough time, because I think they just can't get destroyed up front, because I think they have a chance to destroy Houston up front. And if it's both teams just getting crushed by defensive lines, it's going to be 6-3 in a tight game.
That's exactly it. So what we've been talking about, there's a very real chance that this Texans offense gets shut out again, at which point anything that the Bengals offense can do itself should win them the game.
Yeah, I think just don't turn the ball over, Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
They don't turn the ball over, I think they win this game, as cliche as that sounds.
John Ross. Get John Ross out there, give him the ball in space.
Yeah, let's hope. All right, on to this one. Long one. I haven't read it yet. Hopefully it's not a bad one. Power rankings week 2 mean nothing. Of the elite teams, which has the depth to sustain multiple 3 to 4 non-QB injuries and still be a legit contender?
I don't know that.
I mean, the Patriots, I think, every year have that.
Yeah.
See, I would say that the Patriots this year don't have that level of depth.
Okay.
I think they've got this. Edelman goes down, and Dante Hightower went down the other day, and I don't think they have the depth to handle it as much as maybe they have in the past. Now, the problem is finding another team that does, because there's just not a lot of great teams in the NFL.
Every single year, that is what determines the contenders at the end of the season.
No, that's true.
You see, everyone looks at the teams on paper heading into the year, and the ones that tend to fall by the wayside are the teams that get 3 to 4 key non-quarterback injuries, because they just lose that depth, and they're no longer talented enough to compete against the other teams who are rolling into the playoffs with the same top-level quarterbacks, but without those key injuries that are torpedoing them. So, I mean, the Patriots might be as close as anybody because they just had the best roster top to bottom heading into the season, but we saw just what Edelman
with the league quarterback. You still make the playoffs.
Just what Edelman has cost them. It's a significant blow. If they lose 3-4 more guys, there's no way that they're still
right.
An elite
so the answer is pretty much no team can do it.
And on to the last question of the night, which I have a feeling is going to win the best question of the night, and it is it true Chris Jones is the key piece to push KC into the Super Bowl this season?
Who asked that?
Is that your writing?
Someone who knows.
There's a PFF fan in attendance here? Wow. Fan of the podcast over here.
Or Mike.
You got to see this guy, though. He's about 12 beers deep. It's okay. It's okay. We appreciate our fans. Thanks for being here.
So I've been notably down on the Kansas City Chiefs. But if they were to make the Super Bowl, I think it would be 100% on the bank for Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, that's the guy. Fix that pad level, Chris. You got moved around a little bit in week 1.
I don't worry about him. I don't worry about what he does against the run. I could care less.
He'll be a disruptive interior presence.
I think he could be the one.
Chris Jones, he is a key.
All right, that is it for us. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for putting up with us. I was Mike Renner. This was Sam Monson. He was Steve Palazzolo.
Still am.
Enjoy the game tonight.